The other questions that we had today, one from Nikki, separate question from Eamon, both of them relating to trust structures. Around what are the tax implications, how does this impact lending, and how and when is it, do we set it up? So, so trust structures, just at a high level, when is it appropriate to set them up? What are the key criteria that make this something that is viable or profitable? Why would we do this in the first place? How does this impact our loans and tax implications for trust structures? Now, before I answer that question, I need to mention this is general sort of observations, my general thoughts. I'm not an accountant, I'm not a tax advisor, but I sort of have seen how this works for others, and I've obviously employed these strategies and vehicles for myself extensively. Having said that, I did, have a very close relationship with an accountant. He's very well versed in our strategies, my strategies, and also your strategies as clients of ours. You might have spoken to Scott Nucky as an accountant in the past. I'm not sure if anyone on the line there has spoken to Scott. We would, if you come to us saying, do you have a good accountant to recommend that's very well versed in property, we'll generally point you in Scott's direction. Have an arm's length relationship. We don't receive any financial incentive for introducing. He's a very good accountant to say, look, in this case, a trust would be overkill. We don't want your business. And that's why I like him. As Hobart's a pretty small place, I've got very comfortable with Scott over the years. His son plays football in my son's football team. He grabbed me at the football game on Saturday and he said, did you see the budget? Did you see the budget? So on the cover story of AFR last week, he basically said trust structures are over, right? Trust structures for property are over. I don't understand it as deeply to him. It was only a 15-minute conversation, if not less than that. He basically said that the ATO are coming down on trusts like a house, what's the expression, like a ton of bricks, right? Once again, this is general advice, but trust structures, even he's talking about grandfathering this legislation back in to the previous major tax changes around trust, which was 2014 from memory. A lot of this distributions, tax benefits, it's all going to potentially be diluted if these changes are finally enacted. So big pause button from my perspective on trust structures as of now. We've got to wait for the dust to settle. We've got to wait for these proposed changes to be enacted. We've got to understand them on a deeper level. At a high level, why are trust structures good? And look, this conversation, these sort of points here are for the pre-budget, environment. Trust structures are really good for three main reasons: family planning, right? Family succession, passing assets down effectively through families. Obviously tax minimisation, and then also asset protection. Generally with asset protection, unless you're in a high-risk industry or self-employed, generally they're overkill. You don't really need a tax structure. You're not exposed to that level of risk. Once again, generalisations. Family planning, tax structures do provide that benefit. The advice that's been given to me in the past, though, to get the full benefit of a tax structure for these types of benefits, you don't just have one trust. Okay, that one trust as a mothership, think of it, associated with many different properties. It's not going to give you those family planning and asset protection benefits. You've actually got to have a multi-layered approach. The advice that was given to me is you have a property owned by a trust, which is then owned by a corporate trustee, and then that corporate trustee is then owned by the mothership that extends and survives all the different assets that you have with the other packages. So when you want those full benefits of a trust structure, you do need to have three tiers. You pay the mothership once per annum, running costs of $1,000, $1,500, if not more, for that mothership. You might have 10 properties running through that. But each individual property then, therefore, to get the full benefits of a trust structure, need to have its own individual trust, which you then pay benefits, and a company trustee. That is something that you have to pay to set up and then to administer each year. Okay, it might be $2,000 or $3,000 each year per property. Remember, if you're buying a residential dwelling, it's giving you $2,000 or $3,000 positive net cash flow per annum. Well, you've just wiped away your profits. It's impacting your net cash flow dramatically. Well, it's impacting your gross cash flow dramatically. for that type of asset. So generally for a push property, generally for a $400,000 or $500,000 investment that's giving you good cash flow, 5% yield, a little bit of spending money in your pocket each week, trust structures really do wipe that out. And for the benefits, tax minimisation, is it worth it? Not usually. Asset protection, not usually for most people. Family planning benefits, well, yes, there is a benefit there, but you've then got to look at what is the cost of administering that structure for the next 50 years, and is that offset by your tax savings from, more effectively being able to pass that on to your family members when you do pass on? Not usually. Once again, really high level advice. When trust structures really do come into the equation, buying a $2 million commercial property that's giving you $90,000 a year net positive cash flow, well, suddenly $2,000 a year administration cost is a drop in the ocean. You want to hold that asset for the long term. You want to pass it down through the generations. The trust administration costs are a small percentage of your overall net cash flow position from that asset. It's a no-brainer to lock that away in a trust and protect it, to distribute returns, etc. That becomes, then a no-brainer. Lending, if you're going through a good lender or a good broker, they can usually structure things, to achieve similar levels of lending or similar terms of lending in or outside of a trust structure. And then you are sometimes able to move or purchase assets in trust structures to navigate land tax considerations. Once again, not advice, but it is definitely a consideration in some cases. Everything I just said then, though, big pause, not even really applicable at the moment, based on we have to let the dust settle from the latest budget and the changes to trust. It is looking like a lot of the reasons why we have previously got trusts are over. ATO have locked that down.